Our title, you have seen it long enough now. Now this is in Europe, obviously on Earth. This is my contact email address, and I'm the guy on the left side in the picture. This is shortly after my latest conference in Hanover. My second job, well, I'm an Access developer. I'm an Access MVP for some years now. And my second job is to organize developer conferences. And the next one in English will be in April. You see the link down there. By the way, if there are links on my slides, any links where we can post it for you to download. Well, the Access DevCon takes place in April. Go to the site, look at it. Yep.
Audio problems, Carl.
Are there problems?
Yeah, you're cutting in and cutting out. I'm not sure whether you're running over a wireless headset or whether that has any effect on it or not.
Do you hear me now? Do you see it, my screen?
Yes, I can hear you fine right now.
Perfect.
I won't move. Subject today, these wonderful messages and some more that are similar. They may differ a bit depending on the situation where you get them. And I think all of us have seen them once in a while. So the agenda a bit more in detail. I'll talk about some basics, about the problems and the solutions. So the basics mean I'll talk about virtual memory and 32 and 64-bit. And in the problems, I'll show the most common example where you get the error and some other errors and some measures, some thresholds. And of course, the solutions. I will show classical methods and I will explain why I show two types of solutions. And the other solution I'll show is a switch, the address-aware switch. That's probably the highlight of the session, of course. Well, let's talk about virtual memory, or VM. What is it? Because there is a lot of misunderstanding why you get these error messages. Well, the host operating system, in our case always Windows, provides a process or a program with abstracted memory. And this abstracted memory is called virtual memory. By the way, if you see a link here, it goes down to Wikipedia or other sources where you can read more detail, because we just can go over it in a few minutes. What does this mean, this abstracted memory? It means that the operating system maps your program or everything that's related in this process of your program, like DLLs, add-ins, whatever you have in this process, it maps it into something that's called virtual address space. I won't go into detail, but it's a kind of abstracted memory that may be in your random access memory, or it may be in a swap file somewhere on your hard disk or flash drive or whatever. And the operating system decides where it puts this virtual memory in. You can't do about it. The most important point is that for 32-bit, this virtual memory is limited. There's a hard limit of 4 GB for 32-bit. And even that 4 GB, you don't get them by default because it is divided, evenly divided between the process or program and Windows itself. So what you get for your process, for your Access application is 2 GB. And the other 2 GB by default go to Windows. That's the situation. And this is a hard limit. For 60-bit programs, this is quite different because you get 16 TB of virtual memory. And see, I mean, only half of it goes to the program, but that still means 8 TB. That's 4,000 times more than what you get with 32-bit. So today we are only talking about 32-bit programs, because with 64-bit you won't see these error messages. You may see others, but not the error messages I'm talking about today. There's another problem with virtual memory. You'll see this kind of message like system resource exceeded. because Access needs more virtual memory with each new version it comes out. So the higher the version, the less virtual memory is left over for your application. And this is something we see in the forums, because most forum questions or problems at clients happen when a client or someone upgrades his application from, let's say, Access 2003 to 2010 or 2007 to 16, because every new version of Access needs more virtual memory. Every form needs more VM, the reports, and Access itself for loading its language settings, menus, whatever. Every version needs more memory. I want to avoid two misconceptions that often occur in forums. When people post forum questions with these messages, they always say, but I have 32 gig RAM, random access memory, or I have 64 gig physical memory. Why can this happen? Well, this isn't about your physical memory. It is about this virtual memory. This stays at 4 gigabyte or 2 gigabyte for the application. It doesn't matter how much RAM you have. And the same goes for the 2 gigabyte file size limit of ActiveB or MDB. This has nothing to do with it. This limit stays whatever you do. It's a different thing. Here's another example. There's not enough memory to perform this operation. Usually comes up. When do these memory messages happen? These are the most frequent examples. If you have many forms open, or you have multiple heavy forms open with subforms and tab controls and whatever on it, then you probably will get this message. If you have complex queries with a lot of tables, other queries, subqueries involved, a lot of data involved, if you have complex reports, bit different from forms, but quite similar if you have reports and heavy queries as sources and so on. And there are some bugs where you can get this message. For example, if you do command output 2 to create some PDFs, there's a bug that eats up your memory and you may get the messages. And of course, a combination of this, of bugs, of situations with many forms and complex queries and so on, you'll get these messages. Last one I want to talk about in theory is about how to measure your virtual memory. There are two methods. One is an API and one is a tool by Microsoft. By the way, the credits for this go to Stefan Kraft from the German company DocuWare, who first showed it to me years ago. So what I show you here is taken from different sources. It's not all my invention. And he showed me the predecessor of this API, Global Memory Status. I will show you today the status X, like extended, because it can show us also the extended memory. And I'll also show you the Microsoft tool. The advantage of the API tool is that you can measure it and use it inside of your Access application. The other one is outside of your application. So let's have a look at the problem and the measures we can do. So I have prepared a little ActiveB here, AccessUserGroups.org, memory problem. Open it up. So first one is that we have a lot of forms here. I'll open up my memory format first, and I'll show you this. What we see now is that we have 2 gigabyte, 2000 megabyte of RAM in total. Access itself uses 400 of it, and we have 1600 free. How do I measure this? It's the API I mentioned before. You have to define the structure, and it shows you everything you can do in memory. And then I only put it into a text box. That's it. So let's open up. I'll show you the application. Just 10 records, so nothing heavy. And I'll open up my first form. I have a bit of a voice problem. I hope it works. So I have a form with a lot of tab controls and subforms on it. This is form number 1. And we have a look at our memory status, and you see that 160 megabytes or so have gone away. I open up the second one, and another 150 megabytes have gone away. And I'll open up a few more. Let's have a look at our memory status. We are at 500 something. So there's a certain threshold, not really certain, but a threshold of about 400, 450 megabyte where it becomes critical. Let's open up number 8. Oh, I fear we are at the problem. And now I open up form number 9, and here it is. You get the message. I'll do okay. No, just one. Normally you get more than this. And now let's have a look. Yeah, only subform number 10 can succeed, and then we're out with the error. So this is a tactical error situation. Let me go back to slides. What can we do about it? Well, there are classical solutions. If you get the problem with queries, then you have to optimize your indexes. You have to combine multiple queries. Real classical methods to make your query less heavy. If you have a report, don't use boxes and list boxes, but always include tables in the report query. If that doesn't help, use a table as a record source of the report instead of multiple queries. That usually helps. And now to our example, if you have heavy forms or a lot of forms, I actually did this a few weeks ago, is late loading. That's what I called it. Just load subforms if you need them. Let me show you an example. This is the same ActDB. It's called just solution with a little difference. Let's open up our memory form again. So we are at almost the same situation, 400 eaten up by access, the rest is free. Now I open up the first form. And you see the difference. It's not 150 or 160 megabytes, it's just a few megabytes, 40. If I open up the second, well, again 40, and you always can open up all subforms, no problem. It's almost the same application. Let me open up and come to the point of form 8. This was the last we were able to open completely before, and we are still at more than 1 gig. So form number 9 this time opens up without any problem, and I can continue to open up. Let me do some more. It's always the same form. And with form number 15, I'm almost at 1 gig still. I'll open up a few more, and now we'll have a problem soon, because now the threshold is about 700 something, but last time we succeeded with form 8, and form 9 already had the problem. Now we are at double the number. I open up form 19, it still works. Maybe I'm able to open up 20 and 21. Okay.
Hey, Carl.
Yeah.
Dale, just a question regarding this particular version. Are you only populating one subform at a time, or are you only?
I'll explain in a second. Okay. Just let me open up till we get the error, but I don't succeed. So I could open up almost 30, and we're still at 600 megabyte free. So what did I do? You see the difference, yeah? The first subform, but I don't load the second and so on subform. That's the trick. And I did it at a client a few weeks ago because he had exactly this problem, client in Germany. And what I do is I take this, oops, because there's something, a window from WebEx over it. What I do is there's some code behind the on-change event of the tab control, where I say my control here. Maybe I should show the sub. It's called sub point. It's also object written down here. It's in the on-change event. I say, well, give me the current page. Then I loop through the controls of the page, and I say if it's a subform and if it has something in its tag, and if the subject source object is still empty, then take the one from the tag. That's it. Just take it one time. If it's loaded once, you don't have to reload it. That's the whole trick. Client, really. Just 2 or 3 weeks ago where I did it. So that's one of these classical solutions you can do. The same applies, for example, if you go to a combo box and you just load it when you click on it. It's kind of you can do everywhere, and we can open up 30 forms now without any problem. Second solution, the more interesting solution that you may not know, is the large address aware flag. What is it? What is it about? Well, in Windows 64-bit, I think almost everyone now uses a 64-bit version of Windows. And 64-bit Windows doesn't need the share of 2 GB virtual memory it always gets. So you could use them if Windows would know that your application can do it. And that's exactly what the flag is for. It's a flag in the portable execution header of any Windows exe file. Of course, also our MS Access exe. There's another link if you want to know where it is exactly, what it is. But essentially it tells Windows that your exe file can handle more than 2 GB virtual memory. This is what we can do for Access now. And a 64-bit Windows process then gets 4 GB, the complete 4 GB of virtual memory, because Windows doesn't need it anymore. By the way, if you still have a 32-bit Windows, it can use up to 3 GB, and you should do more testing. But with 64 GB Windows, you shouldn't have any problems with this. And I'll show you how to do it. Is a method, if you have Visual Studio installed, then you can use Visual Studio. Credits for this go to Björn Fox of the German company AccessUserGroups. He showed it to us at our latest German Access Developer Conference, AK, some weeks ago, that you can do this with Visual Studio. You use a component of Visual Studio that's called edit bin exe, edit binary files executable. And it's in every version of Visual Studio. And I think it's better I show you an example. The rest is just how to proceed. Let me show you the example. I have a text file, necessary things. First of all, start those command prompt as administrator. You always need administrator rights. So here's my command prompt, and I say start it as administrator. Then I just make a security copy of my MS Access exe. I used the one from Access 2010, but I checked it. I really tried it with Access 2003 onwards until the latest version of Office 365. So it works with every version of Access you can imagine. And I just make the security copy, and I'll show you my Office directory. So this is my original MS Access exe. It's from February this year. Ago. And now I start edit bin exe. I call edit bin exe with the flag large address aware and for my MS Access exe. I set the flag. So, seems it up. And let's have.
Is there a way to do that without edit bin.exe?
That will be the next trick. Wait a few minutes. Let me show that it worked first. I open up our memory status, and this is what we see. You see it? 4 GB of total RAM, of total virtual memory. And we have 3,600 megabytes. Let's do a quick test. Yep. It again takes 150 megabyte to open up one of these heavy forms as before. Let me open up more until we come to, this is the heavy one, yes, not the tricky that I showed you before, but I can show you and prove it. It's really the heavy one. They are really filled. And now comes number 9 that didn't work before, and we are still at many free. Oh, I think it closed out of it because I opened up the subform. That's not fair. Let's do it again. You see, I can open up a lot of forms without having any problem with virtual memory. We're still over 2. At number 11, we have, well, let me do a few more. We should have the possibility to open up about before. This was number 9 before where we had the problem. Now I'm at 17, 18, and we still have 1 gig. 19. Oh, now we get into problem because there's a threshold of 700 and something. I think with 21, yeah, we are done. But we could open up 20 of these heavy phones, and before we had 8. That's because of the 4 gig now. Any question to this, or is it clear so far?
Looking good so far, Carl. This is really huge.
I think so. But you still need Visual Studio. That's what we were shown at our German conference, and I said that's maybe a problem. Let me access. I throw away my access. I killed it, and I put back the old one with the 2 gig. This one up. Let us do a quick check if that's correct. Yeah, we are 2 gig back again. So if your access gets exchanged, you're back again. You need the edit bin access, Visual Studio. It's better if you make a security copy if something goes wrong, because it's an important program, as you know. Then you have to start the command prompt administrator, otherwise it doesn't work. And then you have to do something like this. Of course, your path to the MS Access exit may be different depending on your version, but it's always the same thing, set the flag. Now, I searched the web, of course, after this session at our German conference, and I learned that this switch isn't new at all. The gamers know it since 10 and more years, and they use it heavily for their game tools. They pump up their games to work better with the modern Windows and to have more black and blue figures in their games, and we didn't know this. It's strange. So I found a 10-year-old gamer tool, and this is the link. It goes to TechPower.com, but there are several tools like this. This is just the first one that you find if you search for large address aware and things like that, and it works very good. So I'll show you this one. It only requires .NET Framework 3.5 because it's a C# program. There exist other tools that don't use .NET Framework at all, but I mean, .NET Framework is present at your Windows normally. And if not, you can download it easily from Microsoft. Was there a question? Okay, then I'll show you this one. What I was looking for, this one. So the program sits here. It's just a small exe, address-aware exe. It needs administrator rights, administrator, and now I have to select my executable. That's all it needs. I have tested this, so I still should have it here. Yes, it was Office 14. But before I should do another security copy. Anyway, in case, I'll search for my MS Access exe and let me do a copy before. Okay, because we'll do it with the original file now. This is and my MS Access exe, and I have to say yes, I want to enable large address aware, and then I say save, and I'm done. Let's have a look. And now I'll show you the second tool. I want to show you the tool from outside the virtual memory. It's called VMMap exe. You can download it from Microsoft, and it shows you everything that you never wanted to know about your virtual memory. You have to choose an application. So I should start before Access. It runs. I can choose it here. Maybe I have to refresh the window. Here it is. MS Access exe, I double click. Now shows me that a gig free here. That's the virtual memory that Access uses from the start on, so about 400 more or less, and the rest is free. So again, we have set the LAA switch. You can see what eats your memory up. There's, oops, I hear a lot of music now. What do we have?
Oh, somebody.
You hear it too? Please stop your music. I mean, it's a great moment, I know. Okay, let me show it inside of Access 2. We should have 4 gigs now. Yeah, it's the same again. So we could open up a 20 forms right now again. So you have 2 choices. You can use Visual Studio if you have it installed like this, or you can use some of the small exe like large address aware exe. And you even get the source code. So, I mean, it's a gamer website, but it has more than 800,000 downloads of this exe. So the gamers use it heavily. And it works with Microsoft Access, as you have seen. And you have the link here. You get the link with the slides. This is how it looks like. You've seen it in the demo. You choose your file, and then you say, make it large address aware. It's an old one, 10 years old, so they had 32-bit Windows, and you see it in the comments there. But it works still with the newest versions of Windows 10 and Office 365. So there are 2 hurdles. I already mentioned them. You have to have admin rights if you use large address aware, and that's not possible everywhere. For example, I told you that I used it at a client some weeks ago, because he's in a big enterprise and the IT is in a different country. He doesn't have admin rights, and we had to use these classical methods like late loading of subphones. But if you have the chance, you can use LAA if you have admin rights. And the second problem is Microsoft. If Microsoft updates your Office, they may exchange your MS Access exe. That could be a problem. If they set it back to a version that doesn't have LAA set, you may get a problem. So Microsoft really is a problem. Microsoft Update. They not only introduce bugs, but also MS Access exe that may be problematic. So what can you do? I mean, you have to organize something. For example, the thing I showed you before, for Visual Basic is just the text file. You could easily make a batch file out of it with the copy and this comments here, and run the batch file whenever you see that you have a problem again with a new MS Access exit. But of course, it's a bit of a problem. You have to be organized to always set the LAA switch again. It doesn't happen that often that Microsoft exchanges the exe file, but it may happen. Once a year or so, it can. This is a problem. The guy who introduced it to us, at the AK, he works for a company that works for a huge European company that has about 6,000 installations of Access out there. And the only problem they have, it works perfect, the large address aware switch, but the only problem they have is Microsoft Update. And they even have made a menu point in their big software to set the flag again after when people experience a problem. So that's what's their solution. But of course, it would be much better if Microsoft could do a better job here. And that's why my last slide goes to Microsoft. I have some demands to Microsoft, and I have told it to Microsoft several times. Please set the switch as default. You have done it for Excel. You have done it for Outlook years ago. These two programs, Office programs, are set by default to LAA aware. And they have done it for every version that's in support for Excel and Outlook. They still haven't done it for Access. It's incredible. The program that needs it the most doesn't have it set. So I try to put some pressure to Microsoft, and this little session here is one more measure to put some pressure to Microsoft to finally do it. There is a lot of experience out there, as I told you, with these 6,000 companies. And now if you, the listeners here, try it and you report problems, there may be some problems potentially with add-ins or something like that that have to use the 4 GB space. But I'm not aware of any problem so far with the LAA switch. So they could set it as default, in my opinion. And there's a user voice wish out there for exactly this point here. And please vote for it. There's the link. If you're interested in this problem, if you have it, vote for the user voice wish. Let's put some pressure to Microsoft to finally do it for Access. They have done it for Excel and Outlook. They can do it for Access. So that was my presentation. We have chased them off on the right side. Are there any questions? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Some people, I mean, most everybody is muted at this point. So if you need to talk, make sure you unmute yourself. Carl, I think this is huge. Can you send me first off your briefing, one or both of your sample Access databases, if that's okay?
I'll make a zip file with the slides and the links and the example databases. Yeah.
And the text file, the text file that has the basically the batch file that has the script, as well as that large address aware executable.
You get the complete directory here. Everything I showed here.
That'll be great.
Problem, and the solution, the settings, and so on, and the tools. I can send it to you.
I will post all of that out to the Access Users Group ET website for today's session, and then as soon as the recording is available, which is usually 2 weeks, but because of the holidays, I don't know how long it'll take to get that posted. But as soon as the session video is available, I will post that out there on the website as well, and then advertise it on LinkedIn and elsewhere. But this is huge. I've had a number of clients who've been running into this issue with various things. Even though I do take advantage of I do use the I don't remember what you called it, but George called it lazy loading. I use a similar feature when I have multiple subforms. And sometimes I noticed that your code, it doesn't turn off it doesn't reset the source object of the previous subform or tab. And I've even done that in some of my apps to minimize the memory usage as a further step towards.
I don't do it because of the delay you get if you load a heavy subfull. That's what I want to avoid. In the process that the user works, I avoid to load it a second time, because normally they go through several subforms and forms in the process of working. That's my experience with clients. I have done it several times because I meet the problem, well, once a while. You can reload it or do it not, of course.
Understood. Anybody else have any other questions? I noticed there were some questions out there. I think Carl addressed all of them. Primarily, the issue is, does this affect Microsoft updates? And the answer is yes, apparently, for anything that's still under that's still active. So probably if you have 2007 and are using it, it probably does not get updated. But anything more recent than that is probably still being updated, at least occasionally.
Give it more votes, please. So there's
You're broken. You're coming in broken again, Carl.
Yeah. Do you see the picture? Show that it only has 59 voices until now. We should raise that a few hundred.
This is the user voice page. I will I'll go back out to our the LinkedIn posts that I created, and on each of those I will I'll post the link to the user voice as well, so that we can hopefully bump that number. We can get that number increased and get the Access team to do something with that regard to that.
Names. So I finished. Anything else?
Yeah, could you put it on your page faster? On your homepage? Just the sub-page which you support, then we would have that links.
I don't know when Dale will post it. Dale, do you have a date when you can post it?
I will post the link. I'll post the link to user voice this morning, as soon as we get done with this meeting. So it'll be not later than 11 o'clock Eastern time when I post that link to user voice.
I'm not sure if Klaus maybe meant all the files and the example files. When could you have it?
I mean all the files and the sample files just on your page, because your page is well known, at least here in Germany.
I could do that too, but I would leave it to Dale if he can put it up.
I'll get it posted today.
And I'll send it today.
Wonderful.
Other questions?
So, Carl, in your searches, did you find any large address aware apps that are like command line, other than the edit bin version of it, so that we could so that rather than having to open a separate app, we could basically create a script that similar to your batch file that uses the edit bin.
But you still have to have the tool edit bin. There are several other examples out there, mainly by big corporations who do it for their applications. That's the problem. This one is free for every play that I showed, this little exe file, but you can get the source code of, if you don't trust it, just get the source code, the C# code, and you can have a look at it, or execute the source code.
Gotcha. Okay, I appreciate that. Anybody else have any other questions? Anybody else have anything they'd like to? I love this. I love your little virtual memory tool that's run within Access, because that's something that I was not aware of, that API call, and the thought that you could actually embed that in your application and test that at some point, if you've got a large form or something that takes up a lot of memory, and you could actually run that, call that API to see how much memory you have available before you open a form that you know takes up a large amount of memory, and give a meaningful warning rather than getting the "you're out of memory" message.
Can I ask,
Yep. Okay.
can I ask a question too? This is Maria.
Hi, Maria.
Hello. Is there such a thing as a memory leak in Access, and could you use that monitoring tool to also show that? And, you know, if you've got items that aren't closed properly or something like that, because I've often wondered about that.
You can use both of these tools. I mean, with the API, you just can show what happens. I mean, in Megabyte, with the Microsoft tool, you can show it in very much detail. It really shows you what does this part of your application, what does the other part. There's a big README file that comes with BMMap Exe. You have to study it because it's rather complicated what uses what a region of your memory, but it shows it in big details.
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Just let it run, and from time to time refresh the BMMap Exe window. This one here.
Do you know if there a problem if you patch that version to big to that it works together with everything Access, so with that tool? Because
if there are problems with the LAA switch out there, is that the question?
Yeah.
As I told you, the guy who showed it to us at the AK, he told us of 6,000 installations. I mean, I think I can, I shouldn't name the company, but it's a huge company in Europe for little and medium businesses, and it has 6,000 Access installations out there, huge tools that use Access on the basis of Access, and they don't experience any other problem than the updates by Microsoft.
Yeah, okay. I just
have a lot of add-ins, DLLs, external tools, no problem at all.
You know that tool from everything Access. You know that Watchdog, because it patches the memory as well.
Yeah, maybe he sets the switch to. I'm not sure what he does.
Okay. I'll test it out. Thank you.
Test it. Any question to anything here? Or did it answer everything?
Does anybody have any other issues they would like to discuss?
I just had a question and wondering if you had like a white paper or a summary of this, because it was a great presentation, but unfortunately it seemed like in a lot of the critical parts where I was really trying to focus in, you know, the audio cut out.
You can watch the video 10 times. No, there's no white paper out there, but you get the slides, you get the tools. I think it's not that complicated as I showed. If you know it, it's not complicated. You have to know it. That's the problem. I mean, the switch is out there years, and we didn't know that. They set it for Excel and Outlook some 3 or 4 years ago, and we didn't know that. And Access needs it more than the other Office tools. So I think we're done. Dale, any more questions?
If we don't have any more questions, I'll hang around and we can talk about any other subject anybody wants to talk about. But Carl, I really appreciate your presentation this morning and the level of detail you put into your demos. It's really going to open up some interesting discussions, I think, for Access developers in the near term.
You're welcome. I think if Microsoft would set it as default, the problems would go away. That's the problem we still have here.
Well, we will definitely raise it on user voice. I think somebody mentions that it's already gone from 62 to 68 in the last 5 minutes. So we will encourage people to go out to user voice. Peter dropped that specific address URL into the chat window, so I'll copy that and put it out on the Access User Group ET website as well as on the LinkedIn discussions I started to advertise today's meeting. So hopefully we'll get some really good.
Let's put some pressure. I mean, let's put some help to the Access team.
Well, and I'll also post it out on that the Access MVP site, and Shane will definitely see it, I'm sure, and hopefully we can get Shane involved with that.
As soon as I have your things, Carl, I'll post. I'll do a blog post.
Okay. Advertise it wherever you can. It's a bit of, again, to Microsoft to do it first. For a lot of people who have these problems.
Fully agree. It would be helpful if you could just put the string how to put the exe file in the chat, that I can copy it if I have that exe tool. That's the most important thing, I think.
I have to look if I can open up the chat.
Because the rest we can do ourselves, but I need that link.
What link do you mean? For the Visual Studio version?
Yeah. Because yes, that would be helpful. That's all I need, but because the rest I can wait. But that one.
Carl, can you copy that into the chat area?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking for.
Like
There
this?
we go.
So,
It is.
Work with every version of Visual Studio currently out, because Edit Bin Access a long-term tool.
But the Visual Studio is freeware anyway, so everybody could download it.
Not everybody. If
the pro version.
If you are in a corporate environment, you won't have the chance, maybe. So it's not a solution for everybody.
Yeah, that's true. Besides, you know, the IT good enough to say them, oh, you need to do that, or you need to do pressure on your IT to put that.
No, they don't do it for Access guys. My experience is very different.
Well, my experience is that if the department wants to have something and they say, well, here's a solution which doesn't cost anything beside you putting that into, then the IT will do it. They have it under control.
Lucky. You're lucky.
No, that's my experience with bigger companies generally.
My experience is more like Carl's, that the company IT departments are very hesitant to allow you to do anything, especially something that will affect an exe file that's distributed by Microsoft or some other large company. That
I totally agree with that.
Their fear of corrupting an executable is awfully high.
Yes, it's all virus thing, right?
But if the IT can do it itself, because that's why that link is so important. If I say, well, I won't patch it, please test it, and after you test it, you can give it freely available.
Yeah, but company policies on most, I don't think, I think they would frown on it. I don't know.
Even if Microsoft would create an an executable like the LAA executable that you've got that we could run, and it was a certified Microsoft app, then IT departments might be more likely to engage in it. But most of my clients are small companies that the owner has that authority, and so for me it won't be a problem to get them to do that. And in many cases they've given me admin rights anyway, even though I'm not their system administrator. So I would be able to run that app to do that installation, which would be great. And I'm looking forward to it. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and I'll be here, and I'll take back presenter role, and if anybody has any other questions.